Okay. So yeah, when you type google.com on your browser, what do you
Mhm.
think it's happening? And what is the response of that action?
Mm, I think it's looping, contacting the oh, let me see. I don't know. I think it's contacting the SP provider, going through all the security stuff, authentication, authorization, all those things.
So for Google, what kind of authorization do you require? Like I can type here google.com
Mhm.
and I did not need to enter any authorization information, right? I got the Google
Oh,
home.
you just mean like when you click on the website, not like me accessing like my Gmail.
No.
Oh, okay.
So what do you think
Um,
happened here?
um, I don't know. I feel like it's checking like all the like the IP address. I don't know.
Mhm. So basically, google.com, which you call it as a website, you are sending a request to that website, right? Right.
Mhm, mhm.
And there is a server which is processing this request and sending you the Google homepage.
Yes.
So you made a request through your browser. So you're using browser as an agent to make the request because you cannot directly make a request to server as a human, right? So you are
Mhm,
using your browser. It can be a computer browser, it can be a mobile browser, whatever. And you are
mhm,
making a request to Google's website. There is a server who is listening to that request and then sending you the Google homepage, which you can again see in your browser through your agent, right? So your
mhm,
browser is the agent, which is acting as a broker between Google and you. So it is
mhm,
sending the request and receiving the response. So its job is to send the request in the right format. And again, when it receives a response, display it in the right format, which you can understand.
mhm.
So this is how a request and response in a web technology works. When you make a request, you ideally make a request to an endpoint. So
Mhm,
we have to get this clear, like what is an endpoint? So when you go to google.com, okay, you are hitting
mhm,
an endpoint and it sends you a home page. So
mhm.
from any computer, if you make a request to google.com, you are going to get the same response again and again, right?
Yeah.
If you make
Mhm,
the request from your computer, my computer, your mobile phone, whatever device you have, you're going to get the same response. But if you give some extra information like google.com/images,
mhm.
then you are not on the Google home page. If you see, it has changed. You are in the Google Images homepage now,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
Or if you make a call, let's say to slash search q equals to something, then you are no longer in the Google homepage. You are in the search, right?
Mhm,
So when you make a request to google.com, just google.com, then you get to the homepage. When you make a request to images, then you go to the images homepage. When you make a request to search with some value, you get the
mhm,
search results. So Google
mhm,
has different endpoints to serve specific purpose. So in Google Images, you cannot search for web results, right? It will only show you images from wherever it can find. In Google News, you will only get news, right? You will not be able to like see some article, blog. No. In
mhm.
Google homepage, you will not get any information. You just get a box to type in your query, and then it takes you to Google search, which provides you more information. This is clear, right?
Mhm,
So these different slash search slash images slash
mhm,
news, whatever Google has to offer, these individual endpoints have a specific purpose. So news has purpose to share news with you. Images has purpose to share images with you, and search has a purpose to show you your search results. So
mhm,
these are called endpoints. and google.com is the base domain. Okay, it's called as a base domain, and slash search slash news slash images are called endpoints of Google. Okay, and you make requests to these individual endpoints. So let's go back to google.com, and this time we'll bring a tool. So we'll click on three dots, and we are going to click on more tools, developer tools, and let me just increase the size. Okay. So now if I like type here anything like Okta and click on enter, can you see these things here? So there are so many network requests being made, and things are then sent to your browser for display. So whenever a request is made, it is recorded here in this network tool. So let's say if I click on this, I'm making a request to the which endpoint of Google, where the request is being made. If you see the request URL, you can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, so can you read this URL?
www.google.com complete search.
Yes. So what endpoint of Google has a call been made?
For the search.
Search endpoint, right? And anything which you see after this question mark means anything on the right of this question mark is the data which you're sending to this endpoint. Okay. So this is the endpoint. This is separating the endpoint and the data. Anything after this question mark is called as data. Okay. Or payload, or also called as query string. Okay. So that is why it starts with
you said all payload.
Payload. It's called as data or payload or query string.
I think somebody asked me the other day about payload on something we're doing.
Yes. So payload are sent to an endpoint. Payload are nothing but the data which you want to send. Okay. So what data have we sent? We have sent the data like Okta as a keyword, right? So that my browser can or Google can understand what to search about. If you don't enter any data, then what will Google search about? Nothing, right?
Nothing.
So you need to provide some data to the endpoint so that endpoint can do some functionality with that data and then give you something in response. So every request will have a response. Okay. Now, when you make a request, sometimes you send a data, sometimes you don't send a data. So let's say like when you went to google.com, just google.com or google.com/search, and you provided no data, still the browser shows you something, right? So these are the examples where you have made the request, but you haven't sent any data, but you have still received a response, and the response contained the site itself, right? The site is in HTML format, and your browser displays it graphically for you. So that site itself is response or called as a payload or a data returned from the server for your request. Okay, so payload can be in two places. One, when you're making a request. Second, when you are receiving a response. So both are called as payload. So when you're making a request and sending a data, it is called as request payload. When you're making a request and you are receiving some information as a data, then it is called as response payload.
Okay.
Is this simple so far?
Yes.
All right. Now, if you see that when you're making a request to this endpoint and sending some data, you are not just making a request to this URL and providing only this information, which you can see here. You're providing a lot more information. So if you scroll down, you will have something called request headers. Okay, so we are clear, we are making a call to this endpoint and providing this data. But alongside that, our browser is sending few more information, which you are not providing manually, but your browser is sending. So those are like authority. So like from where did you start the search process? What is the method? Now there are several methods in HTTP like get, post, put, delete. We will discuss that in detail. So there is a method associated, a path associated, and these headers can change from site to site. Okay. And you have to pass, if you're using browser, okay, it's fine. Browser can add these for you, which are known, which every site uses. But if there are specific endpoints, which have some special data requirements as a header, then you have to pass those manually. Okay, your browser will not be able to know what data to pass. So alongside your URL, even these headers are being passed. There are several headers. And if you are passing any data, it is being passed after a question mark called as query string. And this data is only after the question mark because you're using a method called get. If you've used a method called post, then there will be no question mark and data here. Then it will be passed somewhere here called as form payload. Okay. So this kind of data when you pass in the URL, separating it by question mark, it's called as a query string. And when you pass it here down the bottom as a form payload, then it is just called as data or like a body of the request. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So if you understand this, then let's go to the request method, which is very important. So there are different request method like get, post, put, delete, fetch. There are even more which I don't know, but we will stick to these. So do you have any idea about what are these different methods? Have you seen them anytime before?
Yes, I just regularly see those things before. Like, is that the same the same thing like you see on the Samuel tracer where they say post?
I didn't get you.
No, I said, is that the same thing like what you see when you do like a Samuel tracer where they say post, get,
Yeah,
all those
correct.
things?
Yeah, it is the same thing. So do
Yeah.
you know the difference between why do we have get, post, and different things?
I've seen them, but I've really never like pay attention on doing that troubleshooting on them.
Okay, so you have seen in the Samuel tracer, which says get, post, correct? So those are the HTTP methods. So get is usually when you want to request to see some information. Okay. In that case, let's say that you want to search for the term called Okta. In this case, you are actually not passing any data which can get added or stored somewhere. You're not passing any data which is modifying any other data. You're just retrieving the search results based on a keyword called Okta, right? So you have made this request to get some information from Google. So this kind of method is usually associated with any API call which you will make to retrieve information, not to update information, not to create information, but to retrieve existing information. Then there comes something called post. So post is used to send some information which will be stored in a server or stored in a database. Okay. So let's say that you want to create a user in Okta. In that case, you have to pass information about that user and you have to send this request as a post request. So post tells Okta that you want to create a new record with the given information. Okay, whatever information about the user you provide, Okta will use those information to create a user in Okta. Or any API will use that information and store it somewhere because you are making a post request, which is usually associated to create a new record. Then there is something called as put. So put is used whenever you want to update an existing record. So let's say a user is already.
What's the name of the second one?
It's called put, P-U-T.
Oh, put, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's say you already have a user A and you want to modify that user A's email address to be something called a@example.com. Currently, it can be a1@example.com, and you want to change it to a@example.com. So you are not creating a new user in a sense. The user already exists. You're just modifying the same user and changing his email address, right? So this kind of requests are called as put request, where you do not create any new information, but you modify the existing information.
Okay.
Then the very famous one is called as delete. So delete is used whenever you want to delete an existing information. So let's say you want to delete a user in Okta, and you make a delete call and provide some information about the user, and the user with that information will be deleted from Okta. Or if it's any general API, then that record from the database will be deleted. Okay. Any question in these 4 methods?
No, so far so good.
Okay. Then there is something called as a patch. So patch requests are generally associated with status. You understand status, right? Active, deactive.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So let's say a record is active, a user is active in Okta, and you want to deactivate the user. You don't want to delete the user. The user can still be in your Okta, but it will be in deactivated state. So that user cannot log in. In that case, you will make a patch request. And
Patch.
whenever Okta sees that you're making a patch request, Okta knows that you are mostly trying to do something with status. So either you are trying to delete, deactivate, or you are trying to activate or something like that. Okay. So patch is the verb or HTTP method you usually use when you want to modify the status of a record in a database. Now, post, put, and patch, different REST APIs will be using it differently. What definition which I have given you just now is the official definition, okay? But I, as an app owner or a REST API owner, I can design my REST API to create a new record using post, update the new record also using post, and deactivate the new record, the existing record also using post. So although they should be using,
without using put and patch, everything just post.
Correct. So it all depends upon app to app. So you have to also review their documentation, but this is an official documentation, and definitely these apps also try to comply with the requirement, but they try to generally use as much less HTTP methods as possible. So that's why they stick with mostly 3: get, post, and delete, or at max 4, like get, post, put, and delete. They might not be using patch at all. And those who wants to comply with every regulation, they might be using patch and every other whatever it is, right? All right, so this method is clear. Now you have something called as status code. So there are several status code. Whenever you make an API request and you receive a response, those response have a status code. Okay, those status codes define whether your request was successful or not successful. If it was not successful, then whether there was an error and what was the error. So it will not tell you the clear error, but it will let you guess. Okay. So let's say when I requested for a Google search, I got a status code of 200. So status code of 200 means okay. That means when I made the request, I got the response. There was no error. The request was okay, and I received something in response, and that is those search results which you can see here, right?
Yeah.
Then there is another status called 204 or 204. That also means okay, but with no content. In that case, you made a request, you received a response, but the response had nothing, no data. So like if I make a request for Okta, I get to this page, but there are no search results. Okay. Then it is not an error. The request was received by server and also responded. Server just did not send you any data. Okay. That is called 204. Then have you observed that if you go to some URL, you immediately get redirected to some other URL?
Yes.
Okay. So that is called as redirection. Okay. There are two types of redirection. One is called as temporary redirection and second one is called as permanent redirection. So in a temporary redirection, it is
So
usually
that you direct URL, that's what we use in app registration, right? In
yes,
Azure.
correct.
Okay.
So let's take your Azure example. So when you go to portal.azure.com or office.com, right, and you click on sign in button, you will see that it takes you to login.microsoftonline.com. So just like
Perfect.
the example, if I go to office.com and I click on sign in, you will see that it will no longer be in office.com. It will take me to some other site called as login.microsoftonline.com, right? And there I can log in. So this is called redirect. And there are two status code for redirect. One is called as 301 temporary redirection. And then there is a second status called 302, which is permanent redirection. Now, this does not mean anything specifically that it's temporary or permanent, as in like you have changed your website or something. But legally, they should be used whenever you have changed. Let's say that you had a website called example.com and you are upgrading that website to example2.com, and whenever your users goes to example.com, you want to redirect them to example2, and that is like a permanent redirection, right? So that your browser knows from the next time when it goes to example.com that it has to go to example2.com because your site has been moved. And temporary redirection means that you are currently not using example.com, but you will be again using it after some time. And temporarily you are using example2.com. Okay. So this redirection, which you just saw from office.com to login microsoftonline.com, this is a temporary redirection because it says I will not be using microsoftonline.com for long. I'm only using it for authentication. Once the authentication is successful, I'll go back to office.com. Correct? So this is a 301 redirection. If I go to office.com and I come back to login.microsoftonline.com, and even after authentication, I stay in login.microsoftonline.com and never goes back to office.com, that is called as 302. Okay. Then there are status code like 404. So 404, have you seen any error in website?
Yes, 404. I think I saw 404 today. Yes.
Correct. So 404 means not found. So whatever you were searching, the website or the data, that is not found. Okay. Server was not able to locate those information, and that is why you get 404 error. There is another error called 401. And do you know what it is?
No.
So 401 is unauthorized, even 402. So 401 and 402 means unauthorized. So let's say you're trying to access some application where you should be logged in and you haven't logged in, but you have some URL which you try to access. So that URL will throw an error called 401 or 402. You are not authorized. And then you can go to login site first, log in, and then access that URL, and then it should work. Okay. There is another error called 403, which is called as forbidden. So forbidden means you are logged in, your application knows who you are, but you are trying to access something where you should not have access. It's like an authorization, right? So this tells you that although you are logged in, you are not authorized to access that particular site or subsite or whatever it is. And that is why your access is forbidden on that site. Then there are errors like 500. So those are server error. Whenever you make a request, the server has to follow that request and give you a response, right? If you're making a request to create a user, then Okta has to create a user with the given information. But let's say you make a request to create a user, but Okta could not understand what you want to do, whether you want to create a user or a group or an application. Okta was not able to make sense of it. Then Okta sends you an error called 500, which is internal server error. Have you seen this error?
Yes, I think I've seen 500. So
correct. So all 500 series are internal server errors, and 401 is unauthorized, 402 is unauthorized, 403 is access forbidden, 404 is not found, 301 is redirection, 302 is permanent redirection, 200 is okay, 204 is okay, but there is no content as a response. Are all this clear?
Yeah.
Okay. There is one more error called 400. Okay, that is called as bad request. So if you make a when you make a request to an endpoint, your endpoint is correct, but the data which you're sending might be incorrect or may be missing something. In that case, the server rejects your request, saying it's a bad request.
Okay.
It's okay. So whenever you receive a bad request, the first thing you have to check is the data which you're passing is correct or not. Is it's in correct format or not? It has the right values or not. Okay. If you do this 3-4 checks, then you would be able to find the error. If you get 402, 401, then what will you do?
402, 401.
Yeah. What is 401 and 2?
That's permanent redirect URL and temporal, right?
No, that is 301, 302.
Oh.
I'm asking about 401 and 402.
401. I was not writing it down.
Sorry.
No, so I was not taking note of it.
So I said it's unauthorized access.
Oh yes.
So if you receive an error called unauthorized access, what are you going to check to make sure that you are making a right request?
Unauthorized access. Maybe you check the endpoint again.
Okay. What else?
That's all I can think about right now.
So unauthorized means that the server is not letting you in because server is a protected resource. Okay.
Oh, you check your permission.
Now check your permission can only arise when it's 403. 401 and 2 means you are not authenticated or the credentials which you're sending is incorrect. So you have to check your credentials, what credentials, username, password, client ID, secret which you're passing. Okay. So if those are incorrect, then you receive 401 and 2. Okay, let me ask you one more question. If you want to create a group in Okta to make a request to the group API and it responds you with a status code of 204. So what does it mean and what will you check?
204, 204.
What is 204?
Unauthorized access?
No, that is 402. Opposite.
These numbers are getting me confused now.
204 is okay, but no content.
Yeah, you said that. Okay, but yeah.
But what does it mean? Okay, but no content.
Okay, but no content. You said okay, but no content.
Correct.
I think maybe you're missing the.
Okay, before you answer this, tell me the status code for successful request. When do you think your request did what you wanted and there are no errors and you don't have to check anything. You got what you wanted. Let's say you wanted to create a user, you made a request to create a
That
user and the user got created.
that's
So
supposed to be a score code of 200, like what we just did, right?
correct. So 200 means okay. Okay means everything went smoothly fine. Whatever you wanted has been done, right? And 204 is also okay. It means whatever you wanted has been done. But in response, there is no data to share with you. Okay, so when you create a group, let's say I told you you're getting 204. That means the group got created in Okta, but Okta did not share you any information about the group. But that
So
does
maybe
not
the
mean
group
your
is empty.
API was not successful. Your API is successful. Your group is created. It's just there is no information to return from Okta.
So the group is empty.
Group can be empty, can have users, that does not matter. Okta did not send you any information about the group, but it created the group.
Okay.
Okay. So this is what 204 means. So let's recap. When you make a request, you are making a request to an endpoint. Okay. Let's start calling this URLs as an endpoint because a URL is like google.com. This is a URL, but this is not an endpoint. In google.com, you'll have specific endpoints like /search/images. They have a specific function. An image cannot search a news for you. A news cannot search a blog for you, right? So there are different endpoints in google.com URL which have different specific functions. So these are called endpoints. And whenever
your volume is gone. Your volume is gone.
You cannot hear me?
Yeah, I think it was just going down as if you're a little bit far from your computer.
Okay, so I was saying that there is a difference between a URL and an endpoint. An endpoint is designed to do some specific function, like Google search is designed to search for you. Google Images is designed to search only images for you. It will not search any YouTube videos or it will not search any songs for you, right? It will only search images. Google News will only give you news. It will not give you any fun blog article, right? So these different endpoints have their definite functions, which can they perform, and they're limited. What can they do, right? So these are called endpoint, wherein URL is like the base domain, like google.com is an URL and google.com/images is an endpoint. Okay, so let's remember this fact. So whenever we make an API call, we make an API call to the endpoint and not to the URL. You get it?
Okay, so when we make an API request, we do it through an endpoint, not a URL, right?
Correct. It is made to an endpoint and not to an URL.
Okay, so API request is supposed to be through an endpoint. So what's the difference? Because like when we go to, like when we register an application, right? What we normally send to the vendor is the different endpoints.
Yes.
Yes. So I was thinking that that's the same thing like the URL that we send to them, because we just go copy that endpoint. So I was thinking.
Yeah. So when you copy that endpoint, it is not just Okta.com. You will see that after Okta.com, it has some slash and some other information, right?
Yes.
So that endpoint is only specific for that application, right?
Yes.
With that
Yes.
endpoint, you cannot access all the applications of Okta or any other application of Okta. So that is limited to what it can do.
Because at times, at the end of those endpoints, it comes like with some, let's say like the entity ID, some other numbers.
Correct.
Yeah, I think that's why you said data, right?
Yeah. So that is why they are called as endpoints, because they are pointing to a specific system, wherein if you just say Okta.com, that means it's entire Okta. So URL is like a collection of endpoints. An endpoint is like a single thing. Okay. All right. So what are the things which you do in Okta on a day-to-day basis?
Create users, groups, He said MFA, integration, onboarding, offboarding. Yeah.
Okay. So this is an Okta tenant, right? You're familiar with this login screen.
IDM solutions? No. Are you sharing two screens? Because I can see just one.
Yeah, I'm showing only one screen.
Oh, okay.
You can see
Yeah, I
a
can see
login page, right?
Huh?
You can see a login page.
Yes, for IDM solutions, right?
Correct. So
Okay.
is this login page something similar you've seen before?
My login.
This is an Okta login page.
Okta login page. No, I've not seen this one.
Have you logged into Okta before?
Yes, with the regular Okta page, which is blue and white, right?
Okay, so you have seen this page.
Yes, this one, yes.
Okay, so just look at this particular thing, right? And now look at this. Is it similar?
Yes, it looks similar.
Correct. So this is also an Okta login page.
Oh, okay. I've never used this one.
Okay, it's just branded. I have done some
Oh,
branding on top of it. So that is
okay.
why it does not look like your regular Okta page, but it is an Okta page.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay.
That's it.
So if I sign in, what are the different things you do in Okta every day?
Create users, groups, integrate applications.
And you do it through
MFA.
Okta browser, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now we will do it without using browser.
Okay.
Okay. So for that, if you go to Google, again, back to our google.com, and if you type Okta Postman collection, so it will give you all the REST APIs which Okta has, and we will start making use of that. So using APIs, we can do the similar things even more than what you do in the browser, okay, without even touching the browser. So that is the power of APIs. So if you go to developer.okta.com Postman collections, you will see that there are so many collections. There is a collection for administrator roles, collection for advanced server access, for apps, for authentication, for client secret rotation, for groups, for policies, and so on, right? So you can just click on run in Postman beside anyone, and then click on Postman for Windows. So when you click on Postman for Windows, you'll also need to like download and install Postman first. So if you have Postman installed, it looks something like this.
I need to download that then.
It's very light. You can download Postman. It's very useful tool to make API calls. So it will look something like this, okay? And let me go to my training workspace. I'll explain each and everything what this workspace are, but today you just try to understand APIs, what APIs are, okay? So here I have a lot of collections. So these names you see, apps, Okta API, authorization server, Okta API, factors, users, these are called as collection. Why it is called as a collection? Because it's like a folder. If you expand this folder, you can see things inside this folder, right? It's not just one file. It is a folder which has other files. And it also has a folder within a folder. And you can see what this folder also contains. So this is a collection. This is a sub collection. And these are individual APIs, or also called as request. Okay. So these APIs are called as request. These are called as sub collection because it's a folder which is within this parent folder, right? So it's a tree-like structure. And let's say you want to get a user, you want to read a user, or you want to find out a user. Let's say you want to find out a user whose name starts with Sumit. Okay. Then you make a call and Okta will search which is a user whose name starts with Sumit, and Okta will give you the user information. So this is a user information, okay? It has the user ID. It has the status of the user, whether the user is active, deactive. It has created date of the user. When was this user created? It has activated date. When was the user activated? Status change. When was the last time his status changed from active to deactive, or to deactive to active, or logged out, or whatever status it has. When was the last time this user logged in? Last time this user updated? Last time this user changed the password, and so on, right? So it has so many information. The first name of the user, the last name of the user, the email address of the user, okay? Who owns the password, okay? So here, password, definitely it will not tell you what is a password, and otherwise it's a security issue, but it just keeps it blank.
Yes.
And there are some settings to show who owns the password, whether Okta owns the password or Active Directory owns the password or whatever. Then it shows different emails which you have and whether this is primary email, verified email, and so on. The recovery question for this user, it shows a recovery question. It does not show you the answer, of course. Again, provider is who is the master. So I'm not sure if how long you have been around Okta. So there is a concept of profile mastering. It can be an Okta master, it can be an app master, it can be an AD master, okay? So it shows who is mastering this profile and it says Okta is mastering the profile. Then it has some self-service link to activate the user, reset password, and so on, right? It has found one more user with keyword Sumit, and that user is Sumit Kumar Tiwari. And the title of that user is senior developer. The username of this user is this, the email is this, and so on, right? So I did not have to go to any Okta website. I just had one command or one API from Postman, and I got to know how many users in my Okta tenant have keyword Sumit. Okay. So now if I go to the actual Okta page, go to directory people, right? And I type Sumit here. Will I have the same result?
Yes.
How many results I have? 2, right?
Yeah.
How many results I had in the Postman? 2. I had the information about this guy, right? I also had information about other guy, but not this guy. Okay. So I should actually have 3 response in Postman. Let me see. Not 2. So this is, have I used a limit? Or I am missing something. So actually, no, see this, there is a user with this email address also. Okay, so if I search this user, so maybe that my profile somewhere has this email address. So I have to check. If I click on this user, go to profile. Actually, no. So what I can do is I can then copy the ID of this user, and I can then go to people, or I can go to any user, let's say, and I can just change this ID with the ID I have from Postman. So it says that this user is not existing in this tenant. Which tenant I'm making a call? Let me see. Oh, I'm making a call to a different tenant. Okay. Sorry. I'm making a call to dev 950265591. And this is a different tenant, right? This is 450. So let me
Yeah.
log into the right tenant. Yeah, I think I was making API request to this Okta tenant. Yeah, 950. Yeah, so if I go to directory people, and in this Okta tenant, if I search for Sumit, I have two users, right? And it is matching the information which I got from Postman, correct?
Yes.
All right. So this is the way you can like use APIs to do something which you could have done from browser. Now, give me a reason why will you do something from Postman or through APIs when the same thing can also be done through a browser? Why do you think there is a technology like APIs for that?
Um, I feel like API is a little bit faster and it's going to show you more details as compared to this. Octa 2 is going to show more details, but you see from the first page of API, we can see all the details, but in Octa, we need to do a couple of clicks, right?
Okay, so more information is one benefit. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What else?
Mm. I cannot think about any other one.
Okay, so I'll give you an example. Let's say I want you to create or update email address of 100 users
Mm-hmm.
through browser. How will you do it?
Mm. So update, you're
Update
gonna
email
do
address of 100 users or update
mm-hmm.
job title for 100 users.
Um,
Okay, how will you do it for one user?
for one user, you can just do that manually. Like for John Doe, you can go over there, like for the profile and update the email address. So for a group of users, if it's in a group, I feel like you can like add a rule.
No,
Does that make sense?
you cannot add a rule to update email address or job title. No, you cannot
Okay,
make an
I think
update to an
you can
attribute using rule.
you can provision them, right?
You can provision a user to AD, but you cannot update an attribute using rule.
Hmm.
So what you will do is you will manually go to 100 users and update it, right?
Yeah, but that's gonna be a lot. What if you have 1,000?
Yeah, it can be million also.
Yeah,
So would you enjoy to do that?
no. Maybe you need to do that through the Postman. Can you do that through Postman?
Yes, you can do that through Postman or API or programming languages, right?
Mhm.
Through these, you can do it. So that's why the APIs are created. It's generally
Mhm.
used to get some information which your browser cannot provide. Like if you
Mhm.
see, looking at the profile of this user, can you tell me when was this user created?
Uh, let me see. When was the
Tell me
user?
when was the last time this user has changed the password?
The last time the user changed the password.
Yeah.
Um,
If you want me to scroll up, down, left, right, I can do it
mhm.
100
Let me
times, but you have to tell me where can you see it?
Okay. When the user change, when was the last time the user changed the password?
Correct.
After the user have signed in, right?
Of course, user has to sign in to change the password.
So to the best of my knowledge, I think that was at initial login.
Where do you see the initial login date?
No, I didn't see any date, but I just said like when the user logged in the first time, that's when it prompted for the user to change the password, right?
Yeah, but how do you know it as an administrator that when was the last time this user changed the password? If I ask you, if I give you a task that
Mhm.
Elvis, find me the users who have not reset their password in last 90 days, then you have to
Mhm.
know when they changed the password last time. You cannot go
Mhm.
to each user and ask, hey buddy, can you tell me when was your last time password change, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do you find out as an administrator when was the last time this user changed password?
I will check my logs.
Logs. It may be that I changed my password 3 years before. So will you go to 3 years back in logs? And how do you know to know
No,
the 3 years? You might also have to go 5 years, 2 years, 1 month.
no, logs cannot show you that. Logs can show maybe like 60, 90 days.
So
Mm.
there are some information which browser cannot provide to you, right? So
Mhm.
these are some examples. But if you go to
Mhm.
API, can you see when was this user created? Can you
Yes.
see when was this password changed?
Yes.
So these are some extra information which API can provide to you, but
Mhm.
browser cannot.
Yeah.
Okay. Again,
Mhm.
there are some functions which you cannot do from browser, but you can do from API.
Yeah.
Okay. Like if you go to
Mhm.
this browser and if you click on edit,
Your volume is going down again.
okay, if you go to edit and if you change this email address,
Mhm.
what will happen?
Mm.
And if I click on save, what do you expect to happen?
Mm. The as an admin, if you do that, the user will not be able to log in, right?
No, I'm not asking what will user be able to do or not do. What will you see here after you click on save?
It's going to be updated.
Updated, right? And what will be updated?
The primary email.
Correct. And if I click on save, you can see primary email got updated, right?
Yes.
But do you see this also got updated?
Or the username. Yes,
I
that's
did
true
not change the
because
username, right?
Mhm.
Did I change the username anytime?
No, but with Okta, the username and the primary email like they work together.
Okay, if you say so. Then I can prove you wrong. I can go to user and I can find something called update user. Where is update user? Do you see it here?
Delete this. Yeah, I see unlock.
Okay, don't worry. I will duplicate one of these and I can just name it as update user. I'll create my own API if that is not there by Okta. That sounds good.
Mhm.
And if you go to Okta website and type Okta user API, it will take you to the documentation of that API. And here, if you see user operation, you can see there is an update user API, right?
Mhm.
And this is the endpoint API v1 users. Okay. So I have
Mhm.
API v1 users, user ID. That is what it is asking for, right? In the documentation. So I paste the user ID. This is
Mhm.
matching, right?
Yes.
Then it says to use put.
Mhm.
Okay. But I will not use put, I will use post. Okay. I'll tell you reason why. Don't worry about that, but just observe. Okay.
Mhm.
And then it says, if you go to the example of this, it says in the header, you have to have these three things. If I go to my headers, I also have these three things. All right. Then it wants our data in this particular format. Okay. So I will copy this data. What am I copying? This data. I'll
Mhm.
go to body. I'll put it. I'll remove everything from here. And what is my current email address in Okta?
The
This, right?
5 one. Mhm.
You see also username is 5,
Yeah.
right? There is no magic. And here, if I make it 6, what will happen? I'm updating email address, right? You can see it.
Yes.
And this is a user ID. If you want to compare 00U5W ending with D7, this is the same ID, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'll click on send. What is the status?
Status status change active.
No,
Status
here
change.
200, right?
Oh, 200. Yeah. Okay.
200 means okay. That means my
Yes.
request was processed successfully. There's no
Yes.
error.
Mm-hmm.
And here you have all the user information, right?
Mm-hmm.
And can you see my
Yeah.
value
Yeah.
was updated?
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And if I refresh, I'm refreshing the same user and my value is not updated.
Yes.
So these are certain magic which you can do. So what, like, I did not go into the details of why we are parsing this information, that we will do in our next session. Did you get an
Mm-hmm.
idea of how to use API or why to use API,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So Ravi, when it comes like to this like this user where you try to use for API. So we already have the code. You just need to learn how to manipulate the codes, how to switch things around.
Yeah, because Okta has provided you something called Postman collection.
Mm-hmm.
If Okta did not provide you anything called Postman collection, then you had only this documentation, right? Then you have to follow this documentation, understand what to send, how to send, and then you send it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Okta does things for you so that you can use these collections. Okta has already done things for you. You just need to change few things and your job is done. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll get into, don't worry if you have not understood how this API was called, that's totally fine because I did not explain it. My job was not to explain it today. I just wanted to show you the power of API.
Yeah.
Okay. So in tomorrow's session, we would start discussing API, how we are making the API call, what data we are sending, and then you will understand there's different things which we did today.
Okay. Yeah, Asha, by tomorrow I'll rewatch the video again before